in the quiet of the night. December 16th, 2011. 1:48 a.m. There is no rest for me tonight. Outside, the wind howls with yet another winter storm. Here, in this remote cabin the university has so graciously afforded me, I find the gale closely resembles the sound of a woman screaming. It is maddening to toss and turn like I have, so preoccupied with falling asleep that the effort itself is what is keeping me awake. So I return to these pages once more, a man half crazed with exhaustion, yet the impulse to record these musings jolts the energy to my bones that is so strangely absent during waking hours. This morning I found a new set of tracks going past my front door. Closer inspection indicated it was a quadrupedal creature, and traveling fast. I couldn't help but wonder if the animal had survived the night. This wilderness was like none other I have studied in before, being so barren and cold and dark. To my knowledge, the only predators out here are bears and wolves, the former of which should be hibernating. Photos were taken, observations noted, and uploaded accordingly. My venture into the surrounding woods had been fruitful as well. The subtle signs of life had whispered all around me, bracing themselves for the coming storm. The piney branches reaching heavenward, gathering what sunlight they could, the bark of the aspen, stripped repeatedly by what was likely a herd of deer, the shrill call of a hawk, circling patiently as it sought out its dinner. The wonder of nature, even in the dead of winter. It seems the world never truly sleeps. My own dinner had been a heated can of chili and several pieces of French bread, smothered in butter. The supplies come every 2 weeks and I am learning how to ration them, without allowing the fresh produce to go to waste. I suppose in a way I should be grateful for this solitude, for this chance to study over the holiday break, so that I may record and publish my findings in next semester's journal. Even so, it can get eerie at times, especially when I cannot sleep. Before making another futile attempt at slumber, I feel the need to record one puzzling aspect of today's trek, as I am certain it will fade from my memory in time. Upon my return just before sunset, I found what looked to be initials carved into an aspen tree, not more than 20 yards from my front door. I am positive it was not there when I first left. The sloppy letters resembling an M and an E were just about the size of my hand, and surely I would have noticed when I first headed out. Either that or I was so preoccupied with the journey to come that I simply passed right by it. I could see the letters when I turned to look from my front door. Bizarre, but intriguing. Perhaps I have a neighbor. December 18th, 2011. 11:17 p.m. The storm lasted straight through the past 2 days, making any travel impossible. Outside my window it has been nothing but a wash of white, the world gone quiet, blank as canvas. I have attempted to head to bed early, but to no avail. Being cooped up within these 4 walls has not done me any favors, I'm sure. My body is restless, but my mind entirely preoccupied with my lack of progress, the halt of my work, and a single streak upon my only window. I had discovered it upon waking this morning, and this must be the isolation. I have been fascinated by it all day. The window adjacent to my front door had a line drawn in the frost down its dead center, about a foot in length, as if someone had pressed their finger to the icy glass outside and swiped downward. It brought dim recollections of me doing this as a child, except I would draw stick figures or write my name. Did someone come up to my window? I have tried to make reasonable assumptions. Perhaps a chunk of snow had fallen from the roof and grazed the glass on its way down. Or maybe the wild wind had blown something against my window and I just hadn't noticed. But a quick assessment had proved neither of these things were possible, as the snow beneath the pane was as smooth as the landscape, white, white, white. No pile of dislodged snow, no foreign object laying atop the powder. I have settled on the likelihood that whatever it was is buried beneath the drifts, as the accumulation has been swift and steady while the storm rages on. I stay awake tonight now wondering, what else may the snow have hidden? December 19th, 2011. 2:17 a.m. A snowman. These writings are becoming a habit of mine now. I'm not sure why, but I feel most inclined to pen my thoughts as the night slips into the wee hours of the morning. This night I am more justified in it, I think, after the events of this morning. I was gladdened to see that the storm had finally abated upon waking, and so I had made a foolhardy effort to shovel what path I could outside my front door. The process was slow going, and I was so preoccupied with my task, I had failed to notice the latest addition to my wintry landscape. I had thought at first I was hallucinating, that the sunlight's glare against the snow was hindering my vision, but no. Situated just by the tree that bore the mysterious initials was a snowman facing my small dwelling. The sight of it, and even thinking of it now, makes my heart drop. Someone is out here in this wilderness with me, someone who no doubt finds these small intrusions on my privacy quite entertaining. Even now I cannot make sense of it. There are no neighborhoods nearby, no cities, no easy means of transport. My study on the habitats of local Alaskan wildlife had deemed it necessary that I would be placed quite literally in the middle of nowhere. The possibility of campers in this wildland at this time of the year simply did not seem possible. I have decided the most likely culprits are my home-based team back in Anchorage who ensure my supplies will be delivered to me. I cannot imagine why Mac or Leslie would think this is funny, but it's the only thing that makes any sense. They are the only other humans I know for a fact were out this way just a few days ago to drop off my latest load. I do not want to sit here and dwell on how this could be, where they're staying, or why. I can barely sleep as it is. As soon as I saw the snowman grinning cheekily with his pebbled mouth, some powerful sort of rage had come over me, and I had barreled through the snow just to knock his head off. If Leslie or Mac think this is funny, well, the department head will be hearing about this. They never struck me as so unprofessional. From where I sit now, I can just make out my newly decapitated friend. It seems silly, but I feel a sense of satisfaction that I had gotten them back, as petty as it is. Maybe now I'll be able to get some sleep. December 19th, 2011. 11:11 a.m. It's back. I don't know how this is possible, but the damned thing is back. I woke late this morning, sleep-deprived as I am, and went about my usual routine before heading outside to begin my hike into the nearby woods, and there it was, head back in place. I don't know how this happened, no one has been here. I'm sure of it this time, because there are no tracks in the snow. Let this record show that I didn't dream any of this. December 20th, 2011. 2:56 a.m. I will not be sleeping tonight. I am keeping guard, with only my raging thoughts and endless cups of coffee to keep me company. Whoever is doing this is not going to be allowed to continue. I cannot sleep, cannot focus, cannot relax. Harmless prank or no, this is having a vast disadvantageous effect on my studies, and I will not allow it to go on. Even as I write this, I pause every few moments to glance out the window and ensure that damned snowman is not standing. I destroyed it earlier today, after I got back from my journey. A snowman cannot build itself. So I will sit here, all night if I have to, until I catch the culprit in the act. I've given it some thought and realized that it would certainly be feasible for Mac, Leslie, or even Dimitri, maybe all three of them, to be camping out somewhere nearby. It's entirely possible, even in sub-zero temperatures. I've heard some of the locals do it with state-of-the-art and extremely expensive camping gear. Why they would go to such extremes is beyond me, and it's taking everything within me to not call the university first chance I get. There's only one thing I do not understand though. The other instances, it was easy to trace back the lack of evidence to the storm and the consistent snowfall. For the life of me, I cannot figure how they did it this last time around without leaving any footprints. And in the middle of the night too? Is that really how far they're willing to go for a stupid prank? God, I need some sleep. My mind is a jumbled mess. Once this is all figured out, I'm going to sleep for an entire day. December 22nd, 2011. 12:59 a.m. Every time I knock it down, it's back. It's back, and I never see or hear anything. I called the university today, finally fed up, and I was informed that Leslie had been out sick for a week, and Mac was visiting family for the holidays. Dimitri was accounted for too, though I had stopped listening when they told me that. Someone is out here, someone is watching me, taunting me. The snowman stands guard no matter how many times I knock him down, so I've stopped trying. His daily resurrections have completely unnerved me, and I feel like I have to get out of here. But there's another storm here tonight, a big one, and I am effectively trapped for the next few days. My studies have ceased. My mind and my cabin is a mess. I do not feel safe here. This journal has become my only solace. The wind is howling once more, and earlier tonight I could do little else but stare into the darkness, the breath coiled in my throat, waiting for the door to open or the window to shatter or some ghostly apparition to appear by my bedside. I wonder now if the isolation is driving me mad? If I am somehow imagining all of this? I have read up on and heard of such things happening before. The cold, the dark, the solitude, these things play tricks on our primate minds. And even in that vein, I cannot explain the fear I suddenly have. These pranks have been harmless, as unnerving as they are. They bear no real threat, and yet, the eeriness of it has sunk into my bones, into my subconscious, so that even in the rare moments I finally fall asleep, it is all I dream about. Damn it all, I am afraid. December 25th, 2011. 12 a.m. I have seen something I cannot explain. It defies description, defies logic, defies all laws of God and man. God help me, I do not know what to do. The door is barricaded, and the storm has knocked out my power. It's circling around my cabin now, seeking a way in, and no doubt it will succeed. Oh God, the sounds it makes is like something from the gates of hell. Whoever finds this must know the truth of what is out here. Forget all that you have been told, because what I am seeing will haunt me to my dying breath. It's at my door, it's here. The photos and documentation are in my This, Darren threw a hand toward an ornate wooden yo-yo in a bowl of keys, is my inheritance. Maria paused, one mahogany leather boot dangling in her gold-choked fingers. A yo-yo? A cackle leapt out of her as if the situation had slapped her in the back of the head. Your millionaire old vampire of a mother left her only child a yo-yo? What did she do with the rest? Leave it with the cat sanctuary? Another cackle forced its way out, this time a really guttural howl. The parrot zoo trust, actually, said Darren slowly so that Maria could follow, and be quiet. Sarah'll be asleep by now. He tossed his keys into the bowl and took up the yo-yo. It was light, pine he guessed, and was covered in tangled engraved patterns. When he squinted, the patterns looked like little letters, but trying to focus in on them made his brain feel twisted and bent. With a sharp sigh, he slipped the knotted loop over his middle finger and dropped the body of the yo-yo. It spun silently and still by Darren's knee. "Get me some water, would you?" Maria calmly placed her boots in the middle of the hall and moved quietly to the kitchen. "I'll put these away then," Darren mumbled, catching his new toy and grabbing Maria's boots. Maria was stood just inside the kitchen, making Darren jump and drop her boots as he passed through the door. Water was dripping from a small pool in her cupped hands in front of her, leaving a damp trail from the sink. "Maria?" Darren asked, picking up the boots. Maria blinked as a light switched on behind her eyes. She cackled. It was a quiet cackle, the kind of cackle directed inwards, as if she was telling herself that something was funny. "Got you some water," she said, pulling out her best joke smile. Darren reflected an uncertain grin, then decided to laugh. "Your sense of humor," he shook his head, "you must be ahead of your time because I don't get you. I thought it was weird that you did what I asked for a change." "I am ahead of my time," she said, turning up her nose and shaking off her hands. The two spent the evening watching Maria's choice of scripted reality TV. Usually, this meant Darren could read his latest book, only occasionally looking up to pass judgment on Maria's least favorite character of the day. But after they'd sat down, Darren realized that he hadn't picked up his book. Instead, the yo-yo was in his hand. While Maria cackled and scoffed at the TV, Darren ran his thumb over the engravings. He slipped the knotted loop over each of his fingers. He tried to read the engravings. "Look at this tool," said Maria. Darren turned the yo-yo. The two sides were like identical twins, identical at a glance, but you could tell they weren't quite the same. "Darren?" Darren turned the yo-yo on its side and looked into the gap. It was just wood and string, no engravings, but he felt certain that he was missing something. Maria's voice tightened. "Darren." The high-pitched rattle and squeak of the letterbox was punctuated by the thud of a heavy letter. Darren's head snapped towards the door. "Oh good," said Maria. "I thought you were going deaf." "Sorry," said Darren. "I think I'd better get that." "Can't it wait until tomorrow?" Maria asked, but Darren was already out of the room. The envelope was sealed with purple wax, stamped with the family crest. Darren broke the seal with a light crack and watched purple dust float to the floor. Inside was a slip of card on top of a folded vellum parchment. Darren read the card. "My Darren, I instructed my boy to deliver this to you on the night of your inheritance. I trust it has reached you well. I shan't be gentle, you need to know the facts. I am sure that by now you have realized the toy, which I know to be in your hand, is not ordinary. It is hypnotic. I was given it as a child, inherited from my father. It killed him, as it did every man above me in our known bloodline. My father had no son, so it was left to me. I had 1,000 toys, but never touched another after this one. With it, I could make all the other children give me their toys, even if I didn't want them. I had my teachers give me any grade I liked, and, when I was finished with school, I had security at the biggest firm I could find direct me to the CEO. He gave a job selling whatever he needed selling to whoever had the biggest bank balance. Now it is yours, but understand, the yo-yo has two sides. One hypnotizes anyone you like, the other hypnotizes you. The parchment enclosed has been passed down with the yo-yo. Read it and you will understand how to use it safely. All the best. Mum. Darren snorted. She did lose it in her old age, he thought. Tossing the envelope, parchment enclosed, into the bowl of keys, he eyed the yo-yo curiously, pulled the string over his finger and dropped the body to the floor. The yo-yo spun silently above the ground until it was ready, then it lowered itself. The instant it grazed the wooden hallway floor, with barely a click, it drove Darren to the stairs, transitioning seamlessly onto carpeted steps and leading him up into the dark landing. Darren didn't steady himself as he followed the yo-yo into the darkness, and as his eyes drew level with the crayon S drawn on his daughter's door, the yo-yo skipped up to spin silently again for a second before dropping back to the landing. Darren awoke in his office. Nothing seemed right. The great wooden beams that usually hung far above his head seemed unusually close, and his window, overlooking his mother's moonlit vineyard, was unusually low. He realized his pen was in his left hand. He knew he couldn't have been writing, because he was right-handed. Perhaps he was tidying. He would fall asleep tidying, and Sarah had told him for months to dust off the beams, but it was so late. It must be Mother's death doing something to his mind, he thought. A good night's rest and he'll be back to himself. He noticed the yo-yo in his right hand, but in the darkness could not see the string. He was stood on his desk chair, to reach the beams, he assumed. He stepped off. He had barely dropped an inch when the splintered thread ran sharply across his neck. The loop of the string was pulled over his right middle finger. The string extended over a beam, under his neck, and into the body of the yo-yo, which hooked over the string by his right hand. He opened his mouth in terror, then in pain, as he felt like barbed wire was tightening around his throat. As he strained and twisted in the air, the yo-yo slowly turned, the beam creaked, and the string tightened. The moon grew red, the sky faded to white, then the world went black. Sarah woke to the sun kissing her face. Skipping across the landing, she sang, good morning, what a lovely day. I look forward to my breakfast, to start it the perfect way." She came to the landing, furrowed her brow, and ran down the stairs. "Please, Sarah," said Maria, "it's barely." She looked at the clock. 6 a.m., she cried, "Go to sleep, you little monster." Sarah picked up a piece of paper to hide her grin. It was heavy and smelled funny against her face. "Auntie M?" she said. "Yes, dear." "What's this?" Sarah handed the vellum parchment to Maria. "Something your dad was sent yesterday. Go find him, would you? He left me all alone last night." Maria dropped the parchment and fell back to sleep before it hit the floor. Sarah picked it up and ran upstairs to find her dad. Maria awoke to find Sarah in the living room reading a piece of paper. "Where's your dad?" "Asleep in his office." Sarah didn't look up from the page. "He's so sweet, he fell asleep writing me this letter. I think he knew he would because he wrote it on the floor." Maria snatched the page from Sarah and began to read. "My Sarah." "You shouldn't snatch," said Maria, rising to her feet. "My daddy is so much nicer than you. Look, he bought me a toy too." Maria looked up. Sarah dropped the yo-yo. The door flung open. Jamie came running into the room, opening all the drawers frantically. He stopped at the bottom drawer and snatched a pocket knife out of it, immediately holding it tightly to his chest. He then stepped slowly to his bed, attention fully on the knife, tracing Dominic's name scribbled on it with a permanent marker. As he laid down, his eyes stayed locked on what was in his hand. Dom sat at the foot of his little brother's bed, watching. He as well couldn't tear his eyes off what Jamie was holding. That pocket knife had belonged to him, one he had owned since he started primary school. He might even call it a toy. He sighed. A pocket knife wasn't like any other toys. It was a real tool, one that could accomplish a lot of work, a small unit designed to have as much power built into it. Unlike other toys, it didn't break when you pressed too hard, or when you toss it across the room. A toy that didn't mock you for being too young. Probably why people called it the trusty old pocket knife. Dom had trusted it to deal with all the mess human beings threw at him. It was human beings who told him he always acted for himself, that he didn't care a bit about his little brother. They said that they knew whatever he would say to answer them were lies, and that no one should listen to whatever he said ever again. He had turned his back to them, went to his room and told the knife everything. The knife didn't sneer. When he decided he was still angry and stabbed the bottle opener tool onto the table, it left a dent like it should. A knife didn't care if its owner was stupid or weak. It listened to its owner, and that was Dom alone. No matter what human beings thought of him. Or maybe the human beings simply didn't think about him. They were thinking about other acquainted human beings, those who came by weekly to exchange pleasantries and give subtle comments, all the while judging every part of their lives. And those outsiders were so polite, so fake that Dom's humans lived in fear, always thinking of the worst possible meanings of whatever happened in life. When Dom had grew quiet, the humans saw it as him being rude to them, and that they have been too nice to their son, that he thought he had the right to be impolite. When Dom and Jamie smiled at each other more, the humans thought of it as the kids hiding something from them. They saw it as disrespect, that they did not know everything that went on in their kids' heads. Dom almost laughed when they yelled at him about it. Sure, they were hiding something. The fact that they both were suffering and were trying to make each other feel a little better. It was funny how infuriating it got. Humans thought at all the wrong direction, and they did so frantically. They were completely unpredictable, and yet they wanted Dom and Jamie to guess exactly what response were wanted from them. It was crazy. Jamie held the pocket knife in front of his face and blew at it, snapping Dom back to the present. A small puff of dust came off. Dom blinked, before remembering dust could no longer bother his eyes. It made him a little sad when he noticed Jamie looking straight at his direction, but their eyes didn't meet. Slowly, Dom moved closer, hoping brother would feel his presence. Jamie showed no signs of that. Dom shrugged. Very well. Not that he could complain about any of this. He stroked the knife in Jamie's hand. It was a little dusty after 8 years of him not being around, but otherwise it was the same. The same friend who was in his hand during the dullest months. They were days that passed like a blur, the sky's light bulb turning on and off to the beat of sarcastic remarks and not so gentle touches. Dom had forcibly blended them to the whirlpool of harsh voices and noises. He had survived by making a box in the air, one which no sound or feeling or warmth can penetrate. As the yelling and grabbing got harder, Dom had pulled the box smaller, tighter around him, until not even Jamie can come in. Because every extra word he had to say drained him to the bones, and it was either think of what to say or continue breathing. He sat on the floor for hours, only himself and the knife within the box, staring at the blank wall. He knew it wasn't healthy, that he would sink deeper into depths of who knows where, but he was too scared to hear anything from the outside. Only the knife knew him, accepted him. He didn't care that the box got colder each day, and that how it hurt because the nothingness pressed heavily onto his chest. That was better than having to hear people name all the parts of him out loud to make him see how disgusting and hopeless he was. As time went on, he realized that he no longer wanted to wake up. Yet he hadn't expected the day to come so soon. It was that one evening that even the box seemed like it couldn't hold the shrapnel of words out any longer. Dom remembered holding his breath for as long as possible, then suddenly the box was steel. Very strong, and very, very heavy. Dom had ran out into the dark streets, not knowing which direction. All he remembered was his temples hurting from clenching his jaw so hard. Had he seen the headlights coming? Maybe. Did he try to avoid them? Maybe not. It wasn't important now anyway. Sooner or later the day would come, and Dom would rather there be a little less than excruciating way for Jamie to remember him. Had he not ran out, had he simply let the box suffocate him and break his strings, he might lose his mind and take his own action. And that would have left a much deeper scar on his brother. What matters now was that Dom was terrified. Jamie knew what the knife had meant back then. In the earlier days when Dom still spoke a little, Jamie would even bring him the knife when he saw Dom looking stressed out. And now, Jamie had came running, looking for the knife. For the entire of 8 years, even while mourning Dom, never had Jamie looked for the pocket knife. Dom might be dead, but he wasn't stupid enough to believe that Jamie did that for no reason. "Bro, I know you're there," Jamie's shaky voice called. Dom's chest tightened. How he wished he could answer his brother. "And I think you probably guessed it already." Dom's heart sank. "I'm scared. I'm lonely. They don't get it, and they only see the bad parts of everything." If Dom could cry, he would. He wanted to beg, to any entity, anyone. Don't let Jamie do what he did. Now I know why you talked only to the knife. Because only he was safe. Only the knife wouldn't hurt you. Unlike everyone else. Even me. No, please. I promise you the knife isn't the only safe place. There are people. Please talk to someone. Please don't start shrinking into yourself. It's suffocating. Bro, you want to know where you went wrong? Dom knew Jamie couldn't hear him to begin with, but he stopped talking. You protected yourself by hiding away. You backed off so much that you probably didn't hear most of the nasty things they said about you. But your safe place was a knife. As much as you talk to it, you love it, you know deep inside that it can't stand for you. It can't love you back. It's dead. Jamie wiped the tears from his face, turning to face the ceiling. I don't blame you. It wasn't like you could have spoken to me. Heck, I was 8. Jamie brought the knife up, flipping it back and forth. And there's nothing we can do now about that, right? He laughed, then pulled a painful-sounding breath. Dom still remembered the feeling of tears entering your lungs. Not nice. Don't worry though, I won't go down your path. I have my safe place, and although he's also dead, Jamie's voice cracked. I know he loves me back. When I came running in for the knife, I wasn't looking for it. You were looking for me. I was looking for you. You know, I'm not sure if you're always here, or if you come sometimes, or if you come at all. But I'll just believe that when I hold the knife, you'll come by for a hug or something. Jamie sighed. He stared at the knife for a few seconds, then slipped it under his pillow. He closed his eyes, tears streaking randomly across his face. I suppose I can have the knife? Jamie whispered. Dom smiled. As Jamie drifted off to sleep, the pocket knife under his pillow glowed. On one side, Dom's name was written in permanent marker. On the other side, Jamie's name now was carved into the wood. It was his now. I'm always here. I'll always listen. You probably can't feel me hugging you, but I hope you can feel that I still love you. And yes, Dom felt a tear run down his face. As if that was still possible. You can have the knife.